What's going on, everybody? It is Dimitri, and today we're doing something a little bit different, something that I don't very often do. A lot of you guys have been asking me on my opinion for the new Fire Emblem Three Houses trailer, and I don't normally do videos like this. However, having just trolled you guys with that last video on the pre-E3 information and whatnot, I figure, okay, let's do this. But I don't want to just have this be an opinion video. I want to actually look at the trailer. I want to see what we can see. I want to see what kind of hidden information that intelligence systems might be putting right out there in front of our eyes that maybe people haven't picked up on yet. Or, if not yet, they sure will by tomorrow when there's 1.5 million of these videos in your sub box. But for today, let's break this trailer down and see what's hidden behind all the hype. Oh yeah, that's right, we're going full game explain on this one. You already know. Channel and Derek, baby. Okay. As a quick side note before we begin though, I'm not entirely sure what Nintendo's policies are on sharing footage of this game. Now, I'm actually going to be erring on the side of caution. I'm not trying to get my channel taken down for something that's supposed to be pretty fun, informative, whatnot, you know, that sort of thing. So I'll be mainly focusing on still screenshots and perhaps maybe a few second-long clips, but nothing too serious, just because I don't want to really rock the boat on that one too much. There's no telling with Nintendo, really, as I'm sure a lot of people are well aware. So if there happens to be some downtime where there's no images or video to be played, I'll just put up some random throwaway gameplay footage from some other Fire Emblem game, honestly. That just seems to be the safest way to go. I know it's a little bit disappointing. It would be a lot easier for not only me, but better for you, the viewer, as well, if I could just throw up the entire trailer here and break it down that way. But I really don't want to take any risks, so I hope you understand. Now, the obvious place to begin with something like this, I guess, would be a quick overview of the trailer itself. So, without further ado, the trailer begins with a world map similar to what can be found in Fire Emblem Blazing Sword, or just Fire Emblem if you live in North America. In the background, a woman narrates a legend of old, telling the tale of a goddess and her blessings as several short cinematic sequences play out. Then, for the first time in God knows how long, we are treated to the title screen of this game, with the full title being Fire Emblem Three Houses. I don't know, man. I gotta say, I think we could go back to the drawing board on that one. I'm sure it will make sense, but I have heard a lot better titles in my days. This might be this might be down there, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm gonna withhold judgment. Who's to say? I'm sure that makes perfect sense in context of the game. I thought I would throw that out there. Fire Emblem Three Houses does not exactly roll off the tongue in English. I have to say that. It needs to be said. And it's way too close to Fire Emblem Tree House, which, I mean, we all know what happened with those guys, right? Strange name aside, we then cut to some gameplay. It's basically the standard overhead view that you would expect from any traditional Fire Emblem game, albeit much sharper looking now that it's on the Nintendo Switch. We get a glimpse of the command menu showing several interesting things such as arts and formation. Now, arts are obviously returning from Fire Emblem Echoes, but the formation feature is something else entirely. We can get into that a little bit later. I have a few theories as to what that might be, but we haven't gotten any solid confirmation just yet. I thought I should throw that out there. We then seamlessly transition into a battle sequence between Edelgard and the character Mercedes. It is here that we get our first glimpse of one of the more interesting inclusions in this trailer, where we see what appears to be a large battalion of soldiers following Edelgard's command into battle. Is it for gameplay? Is it for immersion? We'll have to wait and see on that. Still, seeing battalions of soldiers duking it out on both sides like that is a very cool sight indeed. The narration continues as we're treated to a flock of Pegasus Knights riding into battle. From there, we cut back into gameplay, at which point the camera shifts to a third-person view, revealing the battlefield up close from a never-before-seen angle. On the right, there appears to be a terrain map, complete with icons to represent the kind of weaponry each unit uses. From initiating another attack, we see what appears to be another skill, this time perhaps Wrath? Finally, as the music playing in the background approaches the climax, the camera does another cinematic sweep over some treetops. At this point, we get some shots of a bluish-green-haired man as the camera slowly rotates around, revealing the sight before him. A large castle-like structure awaits. From here, we see the young man running through various locales, and occasionally you can see other people going about their business in the background. This is jumping ahead a little bit, but I will say that I do wish they would expand on this ever so slightly to truly make the world feel alive. From what we've seen so far, there's only ever a handful of individual NPCs at any given moment, but if they could increase that number a bit, I truly feel like this could be a living, breathing experience. At the end of this sequence, the young man is presented with a choice. Should Edelgard use a sword or an axe in the upcoming mock battle? I know it's jumping ahead a little bit again, I'm sorry guys. I'm really excited about this trailer and I hope you guys are too. But I really do hope that choices like this are more prevalent in this title. And from everything we've seen in this trailer, I really strongly believe that they will be in the final product. It just really seems like Intelligent Systems is trying to take it into that direction, but I digress. From here, a vocal track kicks in full swing as we're treated to some more cinematics. Although these are very spectacular to look at, there's really not too much analysis to be had here other than one particular scene, which shows a group of soldiers reorganizing around who appears to be Dimitri from an earlier point in the trailer. This possibly ties into the formation command that appeared on the command list as shown previously, though this is just speculation on my part. If you haven't seen the full trailer yet, I definitely recommend that you just check that out because it's a spectacle to behold for sure. Unfortunately, with the information being as limited as it is, there's really only so much that we can draw from this. The trailer quickly draws to its conclusion from this point, but insofar as generating hype, I have to say that the trailer succeeds on all fronts. I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready for this game. We do end up getting a release window in the end, slated for spring of 2019. This is going to strike a lot of people as sort of strange, I'm sure, considering that only a few months ago, the release window was slated as late 2018. Now, there's not really a whole lot to say about this. I personally am of the camp that I would much rather them delay the game and have it be a really good game than rather have them try to rush and meet deadlines for a 2018 holiday release. You already know how it goes. Considering what has happened to some of the less savory entries in this series and other series as well, I definitely would prefer Intelligent Systems to err on the side of caution with this one, and I do believe that ultimately the game will be much better for its delayed release, but that is just my opinion. I'd be interested to hear from anybody who thinks that this game should have released in 2018 anyways, and not just because that means we'd be able to play it sooner. With the overview out of the way, let's go ahead now and talk about what this all tells us. Now, as for the story, unfortunately there is very little information to go on, as you might expect for a game so new. The overarching story seems to be very large scale, perhaps even rivaling that of Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn and Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War. Although it's speculation at this point, all signs seems to indicate that this story will be grand. From the opening narration to the increased focus on realism on the battlefield through the appearance of several battalions in any given combat scenario, we can assume that Intelligent Systems is going to be pulling out all the stops. Still, despite lack of information, there are some very strong possibilities to be found here, besides the obvious. From what we've seen of Edelgard, Dimitri, Belith, and Claude, it is very likely that these characters are all attending some kind of military academy together. Looking at each of their attire, there are many similarities between them. Additionally, the clothes that they wear don't really strike me as normal street clothes. These seem much more like uniforms than anything else. Edelgard mentions taking part in a mock battle, which only strengthens this theory further. Upon closer inspection, it seems very likely that this mock battle is actually played out in the trailer itself. As when Belith attacks Hilda, we can see that she too carries the same black motif as the others. The nail in the coffin can be seen during the same battle sequence, where the generic soldiers of both battalions can be spotted wearing the exact same uniform. Now, either this guy has no idea what's going on, or this is indeed the mock battle that Edelgard spoke of, which lends itself heavily to the idea that each of these characters we've seen so far are cadets in training. This also means that it's very likely that Hilda is a playable character at some point as well. Any Archer fans out there? No? Just me? Alright. So of course it's impossible to know where the story is gonna end up, but it is very likely that Edelgard is classmates with many of the characters we've seen so far. It can't be said whether or not that we'll see the story through multiple perspectives, but from what we've seen so far of this group, I'm getting really strong Persona vibes, mixed in with a little bit of Final Fantasy Type 0 and the usual Fire Emblem affairs. Now to go much further on all of this would be pure speculation, but with everything we know, two things are clear. First of all, Edelgard will no doubt be a very important character as the game progresses, and two, it's very likely that the characters we've seen so far are not yet fully fledged soldiers, but instead are still in training, and honestly, I think that if that's the case, that would be pretty refreshing. It's not the most original setup in the world, but Fire Emblem hasn't really tried anything like this before in terms of plot, beyond a very short prologue in Fire Emblem New Mystery of the Emblem. It's pretty rare to see characters, especially main characters in Fire Emblem, before they complete their military training, and if my assertions are true, that could very well be a bigger focus for Fire Emblem Three Houses. Of course, only time will tell for sure. Now, other than the theory that I presented, there's really not a whole lot that can be known about these characters at this point, sadly. Although I will say I do have a bit of a crack theory about Belith. We can get to that in a little bit, probably closer to the end of the video, honestly. But that said, I'm feeling like this could be a good story. I don't really want to get too invested just yet. We've already seen in the past that intelligent systems can promise something really grand and epic, only to fail to deliver, unfortunately. In the opinions of many, I'm one of the people that holds that opinion. You know, I'm not here to tear down people who maybe enjoyed Fire Emblem Fates, but I truly believe that they could have done a better job with that game. And honestly, from what we're seeing in this trailer, I think that they took that criticism to heart. There's not necessarily a whole lot to go on, but this definitely feels like a complete package in the making. You know, the fact that they've even gone so far as to delay the game just to make sure that they can get everything right really says to me that they care about this title. They care about how people are going to perceive it. And for me, that gives me some faith for the story, even though we haven't really gotten too much of a taste just yet. Now, the graphical style that they've chosen to take for this title is a little bit off-putting to some. I've already seen a little bit of pushback with the more anime-style aesthetic. To me, it seems more as though this is sort of like a natural progression, right, guys? It's nothing really crazy. The Fire Emblem series has always really reflected current trends in anime. If you go back and look at the 80s, the 90s, you'll see that Fire Emblem isn't actually too far off from what you would expect from anime in those time periods. Now, I know that anime isn't something for everybody. I'm not even really a huge anime guy myself, but I've never really been bothered by the aesthetic, and to be honest, this seems like it's very influenced by the Persona series. And if you're going to be taking influence from any series, I would definitely say that's not a bad one to pick, considering how many Game of the Year awards that Persona 5 won just last year. So if we're going to be drawing inspiration from anything, I would rather have it be what is apparently a very good series rather than a bad series. Me personally, I found the visuals to be very bright, very colorful. I thought that the battle graphics looked nice. It felt impactful when people were getting hit. Obviously, there's the whole aesthetic to the giant battalions that join your commanders as they go into battle. I'm not entirely sure as to whether or not that is a true gameplay element or not. I have some theories about that. We can get into that when we start talking about gameplay a little bit. But graphically, I think that this game looks fantastic for a Nintendo Switch title. It definitely feels like the next step in the Fire Emblem franchise for sure, at least graphically. I also really enjoyed the musical pieces that we heard during the trailer. Again, I don't really want to play those for fear of copyright strikes or anything like that. But if you have not heard it, I would just say check it out yourself. They definitely fit the mood. They definitely hyped me up. They made me want to play this game, and they've raised my expectations for what this title may have to offer when the time finally comes that it is released in full. The combat animations themselves are still very flashy, as you might expect from a Fire Emblem title, and I cannot stress enough how cool it is to see entire battalions behind you as you charge into battle. It definitely feels like the wars and conflicts are to scale, and that is a feeling that I feel like Fire Emblem hasn't necessarily been able to capture with the graphics that we've had up until this point. But moving forward onto the Nintendo Switch, I'm very excited to see what kind of possibilities are going to be lying ahead with that. There was also a critical cut in that we saw. I'm not entirely sure who this character is. I don't think that this character was actually revealed in this trailer, so this is somebody entirely different that we have not seen. But for anybody looking for that sort of feeling, just know that you will be satisfied. It is in the game, and I always really like those things. Those are pretty hype. Especially if we can get like little battle quotes for every person like they have been doing for the last game. That would be pretty cool. I really like those. I also really like the little sprite artwork that you can see in the trailer as well for the different classes. And I assume that each character has their own separate sprite, despite the fact that maybe two characters share the same class and whatnot. And that's really cool. I like that. It's old school for sure. But it's something I've always really liked, you know. It's just a personal thing, I guess. The gameplay itself is looking pretty solid, as you might expect from a console Fire Emblem game, but there were a few new additions that caught my eye right off the bat, so to speak. So the first thing that I noticed immediately were the lines that were drawn from enemies to allies during the movement portion of your own player phase. Now, I believe that these lines actually represent what unit the enemy is currently aggroed towards. So if a line is being drawn from Mercedes to Edelgard, as we see in the trailer here, I believe that this line will indicate the fact that during the next upcoming enemy phase, Mercedes will be attacking Edelgard. I can't think of any other thing that this line could possibly represent. We also see something pretty similar at a later point where Belith attacks Hilda. As he goes in for the attack, you can see that lines form between him and a distant character in the background. This seems to indicate to me that as you move your allied units into range of the enemy, the game is constantly giving you feedback on who is going to be attacked by which units, and if so, I believe that that is a very good feature. I'm all about transparency, and I think that that'll make it very, very easy to calculate on the fly how much danger you're actually putting yourself in, if that is indeed what this feature even is. I'd be curious to hear any other theories on what this could possibly be. I think that this is the most likely one, but I'd be interested to hear anything different as well. I guess this isn't necessarily a gameplay thing, but I do like the fact that apparently we'll be seeing the return of the voiced line from Awakening Fates, and hopefully more like the ones in Echoes where they were pretty charming. They were different depending on different circumstances. For example, if you were low on health, a character would have a different line when selected. I hope they go that route rather than just have it be one repetitive thing. And also in that game, you had the option to turn them off if they ever became tiresome, which is something that I also hope returns. Not really a gameplay thing, I guess, but I thought it was worth pointing out. Now, of course, the meat of this would be the commands window that we saw, like right at the start of the trailer, as a matter of fact. This is one of the first things that we see. And when that is revealed, we can see several different commands here. Most of them are pretty familiar. You have your attack, your weight, items, etc. But I want to focus on those middle four. Those middle four we see right there: Magic, Combat Arts, Formation, and Equip. Each of those are pretty interesting in their own rights. Now, Magic seems to indicate that maybe we'll have our own separate spell list, similar to what they did in Fire Emblem Echoes. This could be yet another returning feature from that game, where each mage-type character had their own individual spell list that they would add to as they leveled up and gained new abilities. I really enjoyed that feature from Echoes. It gave different mages more distinctions between themselves beyond just magic stat, speed stat, weapon rank, you know what I mean? So it definitely helped them feel more diverse. And it could be very interesting to see if this will play into some sort of hybrid character later on in the game. It's impossible to know right now. Now, Combat Arts, I think that's pretty straightforward. That's obviously just a returning feature from Fire Emblem Echoes, where you can execute certain commands. Now, what the cost will be in this game, who's to say? Now, in Echoes, you had to pay HP in order to execute these different attacks. And I'm also wondering if they'll be tied to the weapons as they were in Echoes, because of another feature that we're going to talk about in a second here. But I don't think that it could work exactly the same. So perhaps this is an entirely different take on the Combat Arts formula. This could be an entirely different list of skills similar to Magic, but for physical abilities. That's just my theory on this, of course. Now for the formation command. This one is very, very interesting. There's only a few things that this could really be. Either this is not exciting at all because it's the order command from Fire Emblem Path of Radiance and Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn, where you can essentially allow the game to take over and move any remaining units. Now that would be pretty boring, but I don't think that that's what it is, based on some of the other things we saw in the trailer itself. Instead, I actually think that this might be Fire Emblem Three Houses' answer to the pair-up system from Fire Emblem Awakening and Fire Emblem Fates. Now, my reasoning behind this can be revealed by the trailer, where we see Dimitri surrounded by his battalion of soldiers. After a certain point, a symbol flashes over them to indicate that they're changing their stance, and I think that that could be tied into the formation feature, where these battalions I feel like will actually come into play in terms of gameplay. I'm not entirely sure if they will have their own stats or anything like that, but I strongly believe that this formation command will allow you to order them in such a way to give your main commander better defenses, better offenses, more mobility, you know, different formations, like quite literally different formations for your battalion. And I feel like that is going to be a huge part in the gameplay of this game. It's just a hunch, really. All I'm really basing this off of, again, is that scene that we saw with Dimitri, but that just seemed too strange to include that if it didn't mean anything, you know what I mean? This trailer is not very long. I've been talking for 10 times as long as the trailer is at this point. So for them to take the time out to include something like that in the trailer at all, seems to me that they're trying to tell us that that is going to be an important feature. I can't think of too many different ways to utilize a command called Formation in a game that is trying to capture the scale of war on such a level. It just seems to me that it could be that we're looking at different military tactics to utilize with your battalion that could possibly have some gameplay benefits as the game progresses. And that would be really, really cool. That sounds like that could open up a lot of possibilities for on-the-fly strategies, some very quick thinking that might be able to pull you out of a jam that you may not have had the ability to do in other games. And it's also eliminates the problem where pair-up in Fire Emblem Awakening and Fire Emblem Fates is really, really broken once you understand how to fully utilize it. So I think that instead of trying to do more with that, they are instead trying something entirely different, and I definitely approve of that if this is indeed what the formation command even does. That would be one that I'd be really interested to hear about. I'm sure there are a million different theories about what this could be. This is just mine. I think that there's a lot of credence to this though in what we've seen in the trailer itself, but I'd be curious to see if anybody out there has noticed something that maybe I missed. The last interesting command here is the equip command. Now I'm not sure exactly if this is going to allow you to just equip weapons, or if perhaps Intelligent Systems has taken a page from Shozo Kaga, creator of the original Fire Emblem games, and his pet project, Berwick Saga, that allowed you to have equipable items and accessories that could alter your stats. My main reason for thinking this is if you're paying attention to the trailer closely, you'll notice that when Belith goes to attack Hilda, he actually has both an option to change his weapon equipped. Right above that, it says you can press ZL or the ZR button to cycle through a list of something. And I'm not entirely sure what. This could be skills, this could be combat arts, this could be magic, or it could be a list of equipable items that you can select at your leisure to give yourself different bonuses throughout the game. And that's about where I'm at with that. There's nothing to confirm this theory, of course, because it is an empty option, but from a game design standpoint, it would make a lot of sense to allow you to change not only your weapon, but your equipment as well from the same screen. And also, this wouldn't be an entirely foreign concept for Fire Emblem to experiment with either, considering we are hot off the heels of Fire Emblem Shadows of Valentia, where the entire game practically revolved around the item that you chose to equip. So it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to see something like that returning, maybe in combination with some more traditional Fire Emblem elements as well. Speaking of which, durability is back. That is confirmed. We can see that right here. I'm definitely of the mind that it's probably for the best. I think that it was an interesting attempt with what Fates tried to do with the weapon durability system. Unfortunately, it just lent itself to using low-level items forged up for more power rather than ever using something like, say, a silver sword, for example. It also lent itself to the problem where the ultimate weapons in that game felt a little bit underwhelming because they weren't restricted by durability. Instead, they would give you some annoying penalties that kind of made you not want to use them outside of niche circumstances. So I think that the durability system allows you to have a little bit more risk-reward. You can use really powerful weapons like silvers, legendaries, etc., but you can't just spam them willy-nilly. You have to actually think long-term about whether or not you're going to need those at a later point, and I think that that's just a better way to do it. But that's just my opinion, of course. Now, the weirdest thing about the durability returning is the way that that is going to influence how combat arts work, right? In Fire Emblem Echoes, you attained combat arcs by repeatedly using the same weapon over and over and over again until you built up enough skill to unlock a new ability with said weapon. But if these weapons are now going to be breakable again, that makes me think that perhaps there's going to be some other method to utilizing combat arts, or perhaps you don't need to have the same exact weapon with which you learned the art, but instead you just merely need to have the weapon that teaches that art. For example, if an iron sword gives you some kind of special attack, maybe you can use any iron sword to use that special attack. I'm thinking that's probably what it is, but I'd be interested to see if maybe they changed the system up somehow to account for the durability system being reintroduced. And other than that, there were a few smaller things that did catch my eye as well. For one, archers can retaliate in melee from what we're seeing. Good. I'm so tired of my archers being trash, man. I'm just hoping for 2 games in a row where they can be decent. That's all I really want, Intelligent Systems. I know you can do it. We both know you have the capabilities, so let's make it a reality for me. One other thing that caught my eye that I thought was pretty strange was the fact that both in the pre-battle forecast as well as in the battles themselves, there doesn't appear to be any kind of weapon triangle indication. We see Edelgard go against a sword while using an axe, and although her accuracy is very low, we don't actually see any kind of visual representation that would indicate that there is indeed a weapon triangle in this game. Now, I'm curious to see if they just forgot, or perhaps it's not implemented yet, because Edelgard's accuracy, again, is suspiciously low here. It would be interesting to think about what this game could be like without the weapon triangle, though. It's been quite a while since we've seen something like that, and I know, obviously, there was echoes The very previous iteration of this game, in fact. But I don't really like to count that necessarily, as it is a remake of a very, very old game. Discounting that, the last time there's been no weapon triangle has been Fire Emblem 3. And here we are at Fire Emblem 16, so it could be very interesting to see what they have in mind with that. This is one of those things that could be nothing, but I definitely think it's worth pointing out the fact that, as of right now, we haven't got a 100% yes or no either way. The last thing that caught my eye was obviously this abomination, whatever this is supposed to be. It looks like some sort of machine-like being. I'm not entirely sure what this means, but perhaps we could be seeing some non-human enemies as well. Dragons are almost always a given, let's be honest, because hey, it's Fire Emblem, man. But other than that, it looks like we might have an entirely new enemy type, and that could be very cool to see. So all in all, for concrete information, I think that honestly just about does it. I am insanely hyped for this game. I cannot wait until 2018, early spring. I'm gonna get my hands on this crap day one, you already know. Oh, right, wait. Right. I said I had a crack theory, didn't I? And what better subject to theorize about than the presence of a potential avatar, right? That's something that they've been strangely silent about, and as such a huge feature in a lot of the more recent iterations of the game, you would think for sure that something like that would be included in the trailer. But I'm here to tell you that they did include the avatar in the trailer. The avatar is 100% in the trailer. He's all over the trailer, and I'm telling you why right now. So get this. Think about what the focus of the trailer was in terms of characters, right? So we had Edelgard, obviously, but then we also had Byleth. Now, for a character who never opens his mouth or says anything throughout the entire trailer, why would he get so much focus? Think about that. Why did they focus on Byleth so much? We can be almost assured that Edelgard is a lord. That much we know. But why Byleth then? Why are we walking around and controlling this guy who didn't utter a single line of dialogue? And why would they write a lord character who doesn't speak? Well, they wouldn't, would they? So I believe that the answer to whether or not there will be an avatar in this game is right in front of our eyes. The answer is yes. Yes, there is an avatar, and we've already seen him. Byleth might not even be this guy's real name. That could just be the default name, like Robin or Corrin. And this idea isn't entirely out of left field either. If you played anything in the Shin Megami Tensei series, for example, you're probably very familiar with the idea of a silent protagonist for which you, the player, get to choose what they say. And sure enough, we've already seen something like that in this very first trailer when Byleth is speaking to Edelgard. So all in all, if you're one of the people who really enjoys the avatar aspect to this game, I would say don't even worry. And if you are one of the people who thinks that avatars ruin the pacing of a Fire Emblem game, ruin the plot of a Fire Emblem game, to you I would also say don't sweat it. Because from what we've gathered from this, if what I'm saying has any credibility whatsoever, and I really believe it does, based on what kind of games I've personally experienced, what kind of games I know many other people have personally experienced, and that's not to even get into the trailer itself, which also seems to be backing me up on this, I would say that the idea of the avatar being a silent protagonist for which you get to make the decisions, that would be the best of both worlds, honestly. Not only that, but it also brings stronger immersion, in my opinion, because you're not dealing with somebody who's an actual character. Now we can finally deal with ourselves in the game. You know what I mean? We're the ones making the decisions here. We're the ones behind the driver's seat. No longer are we sitting back giving some random character our name as they go off and make all kinds of terrible decisions without our consent, Corrin. God damn it. You know what I mean? Those guys are actual characters. Robin is a character. Corrin is a character. Byleth might be you. And I think that if they want to go that direction with the avatar system, I think that would be a much appreciated improvement. But that is just my opinion. Maybe I'm dead wrong. If you can discount me, feel free to do so. I would definitely appreciate it, because from where I'm sitting, this is looking pretty solid in my opinion. But that said, I think that just about wraps this one up. There's a few little minor things that I didn't really pay too much attention to either. For example, we seem to be getting some kind of unmounted lance user named Dimitri. I know I mentioned him a little bit, but I never really called attention to his class or his weapon or anything like that. Similarly, we saw the archer Claude Pretty interesting, pretty interesting. I'm hoping the archers will be good in this game. And there were also 2 unknown characters that you could see here. Another lance user, perhaps some kind of knight, and a mage as well. But those are just some basic things that I'm sure that most people, you can see that, you know what I mean? I didn't feel the need to necessarily draw a lot of attention to that. It is interesting, though. We're seeing a lot of these, what I believe to be the starting characters anyways. I honestly think that these guys all know each other in some capacity, but hey, that's my theory. And I would love to hear yours. We are going to call it good here. I don't really think that there's too much else that I personally have to add to this. I'm obviously very stoked for this game. I cannot wait for it to be released, and I'm sure that a lot of you guys are feeling the same. But I know a lot of you guys did ask what my opinions on this game were, so there you go. Have a nice half an hour long video, and I swear to God, if this video doesn't do at least as good as the 13-minute video that was just nothing but a black screen, I will never try with anything I do ever again. I'm just kidding, of course, guys. I'm tired. Anyways, if you did enjoy this little theory/information session, feel free to leave a like. I appreciate those, guys. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are. I'm interested to hear what other people are thinking about this one, and I will catch you on the next one, whatever that may be. Until then, I'll see you guys later. See you. Peace.